My son told me not to come to the graduation. Mum, it's better if you stay home. His voice was casual, like he was discussing the weather, not erasing me from one of the most important days of my grandson's life. You know how these things are. Formal. The photos need to look professional. Professional. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, one hand gripping the counter's edge so hard my knuckles went white. The marble was cold beneath my palm, smooth, reliable. Unlike the man on the other end of the line who had once been my baby boy. I see, I said. What I didn't say. I paid for that graduation, the tuition, the dorm, the meal plan, 4 years of automatic withdrawals from my account, $1,700 a month, like clockwork. Money I earned selling Robert's vintage car collection after he died, because Daniel said it was just gathering dust anyway, and Tyler needed a real education, not some state school. What I didn't say, I bought Tyler's cap and gown myself, had it shipped to my house first so I could run my fingers over the fabric and imagine him wearing it, imagine the pride I'd feel watching him walk across that stage. What I didn't say, I'm 72 years old and I have attended every single milestone in that boy's life since the day he was born, and you're telling me I'm not good enough for this one. Great, Mom. I knew you'd understand. Relief flooded his voice. Marissa was worried you'd make a scene. Marissa, my daughter-in-law who hasn't looked me in the eye in 3 years, who rearranges the living room furniture every time I visit, moving things just slightly, just enough that I stumble, that I look clumsy and old, who refers to my house, the house Robert and I bought in 1978, the house where Daniel learned to walk, where we hosted Christmas for 40 years, as the property in conversations I'm not supposed to overhear. I wouldn't dream of making a scene, I said. That part was true. I hung up before he could say anything else, before he could tell me what a good mother I was for being so understanding, before he could ask if I could increase the monthly amount because Tyler was thinking about graduate school. The kitchen was quiet, too quiet. It was always quiet now. The house had been full once, Daniel's baseball cleats by the door. His terrible saxophone practice echoing through the halls, Robert's laugh filling every room. Now there was just me and the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway that no one wound anymore except me. I looked at my phone. The screen was dark, reflecting my face back at me in fragments. An old woman, tired, fading into the wallpaper of her own life. On the counter sat the folder. I'd pulled it out this morning before Daniel called, meaning to go through the bills. Inside were bank statements, automatic payment confirmations, records of transfers, all the ways I had made myself useful, all the ways I had earned my place at the table. $1,700 a month for Tyler's college, $400 a month for Daniel's car payment. The BMW he'd bought without asking, just called to say he'd put me down as a co-signer. His credit wasn't great, could I help out? $800 a month for the country club membership. For Marissa, because networking is essential for my career. Mom, you want me to succeed, don't you? $200 a month for Tyler's phone plan, his streaming services, his gym membership. $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year. For 5 years now, I'd never added it up before, never let myself see it all in one place, all those numbers stacked on top of each other, all that money flowing out like water through my fingers while I ate soup for dinner 3 nights a week and drove Robert's old Camry with the broken air conditioning because a new car seemed extravagant. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped Daniel with his homework, where Robert and I had done our taxes every April, where I'd signed the papers after he died, all those documents with their official stamps and solemn language, transferring everything to my name alone. The folder was thick. I opened it. Inside, clipped to the bank statements, was the graduation announcement Tyler had sent me 3 months ago. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, Tyler James Morrison requests the honour of your presence. My name written in his careful handwriting at the top. Your presence is requested, but not honoured, apparently, not wanted. I ran my finger over the words. The paper was expensive. I wondered if Daniel had charged that to my account too. The piano in the living room caught my eye through the doorway. Robert's mother's piano, a beautiful old upright that I'd kept polished and tuned even though no one played it anymore. Tyler used to play. Before he went to college, before he got too busy, he'd sit there on Sunday afternoons and work through Bach preludes, his small hands stumbling over the keys, his face scrunched in concentration. I'd stand in the kitchen and listen, my heart so full it hurt. The last time he'd visited, 6 months ago, maybe 7, he'd walked right past it without a glance. I stood up, walked to the living room, put my hand on the piano's closed lid. The wood was warm from the afternoon sun streaming through the window. Beneath my palm, I could feel the years, all the music that had lived here, all the love. No one wanted it anymore. No one wanted me anymore, except as a checkbook, a convenient source of funds, a problem to be managed, kept at a distance. Not allowed to embarrass them with my presence. I thought about Daniel's voice on the phone, that casual dismissal. It's better if you stay home. I thought about all the times I'd said yes when I should have said no. Yes to the car payment, yes to the country club, yes to the tuition, the fees, the endless requests that came wrapped in loving language but felt like invoices. Yes to staying small, staying quiet, staying grateful that they called at all. I looked at my reflection in the piano's polished surface, an old woman, invisible, no more. I walked back to the kitchen, picked up my purse, and found my car keys. The graduation was in 3 days. I didn't call Daniel back, didn't ask permission, didn't announce my plans. I simply went. The university was 2 hours away. I left early, before dawn, when the sky was still that deep purple black that makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. The highways were empty, just me and the truck drivers and the distant glow of cities I'd never visited. I'd bought a new dress for the occasion, navy blue, simple, elegant. It had been on sale at Nordstrom, but even on sale it cost more than I usually spent on myself. I'd stood in the dressing room for 10 minutes, looking at the price tag, arguing with myself. You don't need it. But I wanted it. That was enough. I wore it with the pearl earrings Robert gave me for our 30th anniversary. And the watch he gave me for our 40th. Small rebellions, tiny declarations that I was still a person, still someone who deserved beautiful things. The campus was larger than I'd expected. Buildings of red brick and white columns, students in black gowns streaming toward the main quad like a river of crows. I followed them, keeping my distance, just another anonymous elderly woman in the crowd. The ceremony was held outdoors, rows and rows of white folding chairs arranged on the lawn, facing a temporary stage. I arrived early and sat in the very back row, far to the left, where the oak trees cast shade and I could see without being seen. I'd brought binoculars. The thought made me laugh, just a little. A 72-year-old woman sitting alone with binoculars at her grandson's graduation, like some kind of spy. But I wanted to see his face. I wanted to see the moment he walked across that stage, even if I was watching from a distance. Families began to arrive. I watched them claim their seats, their territory. Mothers in bright dresses and uncomfortable heels, fathers in suits, checking their watches, siblings slouching, bored already, grandparents moving slowly, carefully, arms linked. I saw Daniel before he saw me. He looked prosperous. That was the word that came to mind, prosperous. His suit was new. I recognized the cut, the Italian tailoring he'd started preferring since Marissa entered his life. His hair was styled, touched with grey at the temples in a way that looked distinguished rather than old. Marissa walked beside him in a dress that probably cost more than my car payment. Cream-coloured, designer, paired with shoes that made her taller than Daniel. She was beautiful. I'd never denied that. Beautiful and cold, like a sculpture in a museum that you weren't allowed to touch. They sat in the third row, centre section, the best seats. I wondered if Tyler had saved those seats for them. If he'd asked about me, if Daniel had said anything. Probably not. I was a secret now, a shameful secret. The embarrassing mother, the woman who didn't fit the image they'd carefully constructed. The ceremony began. It was long. Speakers droned on about potential and futures and the changing world. I stopped listening. I was only waiting for one name, Tyler James Morrison. When they called it, I raised the binoculars. There he was, my grandson, 22 years old, cap slightly crooked, gown billowing around his legs as he walked across the stage. His smile was Robert's smile, wide and genuine, lighting up his whole face. He shook the dean's hand, accepted his diploma, turned to face the crowd. I could see him perfectly. For just a moment, he looked toward the back of the crowd, as if searching for something, for someone. I lowered the binoculars. Let him look. Let him wonder. The ceremony continued. More names, more handshakes, more families cheering and taking photos and waving signs. I sat perfectly still in my chair, hands folded in my lap, pearls warm against my neck. When it ended, the crowd surged forward, parents rushing to find their graduates, cameras flashing, hugs and tears and laughter everywhere. I stood and waited until the main rush had passed, then walked slowly toward the exit. I didn't try to find Tyler. I didn't approach Daniel and Marissa. I had come to see. I had seen. That was enough. On the drive home, I stopped at a rest area halfway, bought coffee from a vending machine that tasted like battery acid, and sat at a picnic table overlooking the highway. The folder was in my car. I'd brought it with me, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe I'd known all along what I needed to do. Maybe I'd been working toward this moment for longer than I realized. I opened it on the picnic table. The bank statements were organized by month. Every automatic payment highlighted in yellow, my own system, from when I'd been trying to keep track, back when I still thought of it as helping rather than enabling. $1,700 for tuition, $400 for the car, $800 for the club, $200 for Tyler's extras, all of it, every month, like clockwork. Like something I owed them, like a tax on being loved. I had a pen in my purse, one of those cheap ones from the bank, from when I'd opened my savings account in 1985. The ink was fading, but it still worked. I wrote a list on the back of an envelope. 1. Cancel automatic payments. 2. Set up trust for Tyler. 3. Update will. 4. Change executor. 5. Locks? The last one I added after a pause. Then I underlined it. My hand was steady. I folded the envelope and put it back in my purse, then gathered the bank statements and returned them to the folder. The coffee was cold now, but I finished it anyway, feeling the bitterness coat my tongue. The sun was setting. The highway lights were beginning to flicker on. I got back in my car and drove home through the gathering dark. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt something that wasn't exhaustion. I felt awake. When I got home, the house was exactly as I'd left it. Empty, quiet, mine. I went to my bedroom and changed out of the navy dress, hanging it carefully in the closet. I put the pearls back in their box. I washed my face and put on my nightgown and sat on the edge of my bed for a long moment, looking at nothing. My phone rang. Daniel. I looked at it, watched his name flash on the screen, let it go to voicemail, picked it up on the 4th ring anyway, old habits dying hard. Mum, where were you? His voice was tight, annoyed. We tried calling. Tyler wanted to see you. A lie. I could hear it in his voice. Tyler hadn't asked. This was damage control. Someone had seen me. Someone had mentioned the old woman in the back row with the binoculars. I went for a drive, I said. Lovely day for it. A drive, flat, disbelieving. Mum, it's Tyler's graduation. Yes, he was asking about you. I'm sure he was. Silence. I could hear Marissa in the background, her voice sharp with questions. Mum. Daniel's tone changed, became careful. The voice he used when he wanted something. Listen, about what I said before, about the ceremony, I might have overreacted. You know how stressful these things are. I understand. So you're not upset? No. More silence. This one confused. He'd been expecting resistance, an argument, tears maybe, the mother who apologized, who made everything easier, who disappeared when convenient. Okay, he said finally. Well, good. Tyler wants to take us all to dinner tomorrow night. Celebration. Can you come? I have plans. Plans? What plans? Personal plans. Mum, I need to go, Daniel. I'll talk to you soon. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking now, not from fear, from something else, something that felt like electricity running under my skin. I got up and walked through the house, turning on every light, the kitchen, the living room, the hallways, the guest rooms that no one used anymore. I made the house bright, made it visible, made it impossible to ignore. In the living room, I stopped in front of the piano. Tomorrow, I would start making calls. Tonight, I would sit with the silence and learn to hear it differently. The bank opened at 9. I was there at 8:45, waiting in my car in the parking lot, watching employees unlock the doors and flip the sign from close to open. I'd dressed carefully again, slacks, a blouse, the blazer I used to wear to Robert's company events. I wanted to look competent, in control, not like someone's confused elderly mother. The folder sat on the passenger seat beside me. Inside it, I'd added new pages I'd printed this morning, account summaries, automatic payment schedules, a list of every transaction for the past year, numbers that told a story I was finally ready to see. At 9 exactly, I walked in. The lobby was bright and modern, all glass and chrome and potted plants that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. A young woman at the reception desk looked up and smiled with practiced warmth. Good morning. How can we help you today? I need to speak with someone about my accounts. I want to cancel some automatic payments and set up a trust fund. Her smile didn't waver, but something changed in her eyes. A calculation, an assessment. Of course. Let me see who's available. May I have your name? Margaret Morrison. She typed into her computer. Frowned slightly. I see you're one of our long-term customers. Wonderful. Let me get Mr. Patterson for you. He handles our estate planning services. She led me to a small office with a glass door and a desk that held nothing but a computer and a single framed photo of 2 golden retrievers. Mr. Patterson stood when I entered. Mid-40s, expensive suit, handshake that was firm without being aggressive. "Mrs. Morrison, please sit down. How can I help you today?" I sat, opened the folder, slid the first bank statement across his desk. "I want to cancel these automatic payments immediately, all of them." He picked up the statement, scanned it. His expression remained neutral, professional. "I see. May I ask why?" "They're no longer necessary." "Of course." He typed something. "I'll need to verify your identity and authorization. Some of these accounts show a secondary holder, your son, Daniel Morrison. He's not authorized to make changes, only to receive payments." "I understand. And you want all of these cancelled? The tuition payments, the car payment, the club membership, all of them?" He paused, looked at me with that careful expression people use when they're trying to decide if an elderly person is competent. "Mrs. Morrison, I have to ask, are you under any pressure to make these changes? Sometimes family dynamics can be complicated, and we want to make sure I'm under no pressure except my own common sense, Mr. Patterson." I kept my voice level, polite. "I'm 72 years old. I've been managing money since before you were born. I want these payments stopped today." He nodded slowly. "I'll process the cancellations. They'll take effect within 24 hours. "Good. And you mentioned a trust fund?" I pulled out the second set of papers. Notes I'd made last night, sitting at my kitchen table until 2 in the morning, researching online, reading through documents Robert and I had set up years ago. "I want to establish a trust for my grandson, Tyler Morrison's. It should be accessible to him only, not his parents, for education, housing, emergencies, but structured so it can't be drained all at once." "We can certainly do that. I'll need some time to draw up the documents, get our legal team involved. This isn't something we can finalize today." "I understand. How long?" "Give me a week. I'll call you to schedule a follow-up appointment." I gave him Tyler's information, social security number, address, date of birth. Details I'd kept in a little notebook in my purse, the grandmother's archive of important facts. When we finished, Mr. Patterson walked me to the door. His handshake was warmer this time. "Mrs. Morrison, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing." I didn't answer. Wasn't sure if he was right or wrong. Wasn't sure it mattered. In the car, I sat for a long moment before starting the engine. Done. The word felt strange, final, like I'd crossed a bridge and burned it behind me. My phone buzzed. Daniel. I let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again. A text this time. "Mum, we need to talk. Tyler says you didn't come to dinner last night. What's going on?" I typed back, "Busy. We'll call later." 3 dots appeared immediately. He was typing. I turned my phone off before I could see what he said. The drive home felt longer than usual. The neighbourhoods I passed looked different somehow, sharper, more real. I noticed things I'd stopped seeing years ago, the way sunlight fell through tree branches, the precise blue of someone's painted door, the careful geometry of power lines against the sky. I stopped at the grocery store, walked slowly through the aisles, my cart nearly empty. I was used to buying in bulk, used to cooking for a family that never came, freezing portions that Daniel and Marissa would pick up when it was convenient. Lasagna, pot roast, Robert's favourite lemon cake. Today I bought ingredients for one person, fresh vegetables, a small chicken breast, a single perfect peach. At checkout, the cashier, a teenager with braces and tired eyes, smiled at my purchases. "Light week? New routine?" I said. At home, I put the groceries away with deliberate care, everything in its place. The refrigerator no longer crowded with Tupperware containers I'd labelled with masking tape and dates. The house felt different, not empty, something else, waiting. I sat at the kitchen table and turned my phone back on. 14 missed calls, 8 voicemails, 12 text messages, all from Daniel. I listened to the first voicemail. "Mum, what the hell is going on? The bank just called me. They said you cancelled the car payment?" "That's my car, Mum. We had an agreement. You can't just call me back now." His voice was tight, angry, the polite veneer gone. I deleted it. The second voicemail. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to stop. Marissa is upset. Tyler is confused. You're acting crazy. I'm coming over tonight to talk about this face to face." I deleted that one too. The text messages were worse, escalating from confusion to anger to something that looked like panic. "Why are you doing this? We can talk about this reasonably. You're hurting Tyler. Is that what you want? Marissa says you're having some kind of breakdown. I'm calling Dr. Chen. You need to see someone." That last one made me pause. Dr. Chen was my primary care physician, a kind man who'd been managing my blood pressure and arthritis for 10 years. Daniel was going to call him, tell him I was incompetent, unstable, having a breakdown. I thought about that for a long moment. Then I picked up the phone and called Dr. Chen's office myself. "This is Margaret Morrison. I'd like to schedule my annual physical, and I'd like to discuss having a formal mental competency evaluation." The receptionist sounded surprised. "A competency evaluation? Yes, I want it on record that I'm of sound mind for legal purposes. I'll have Dr. Chen call you back." I hung up. Outside, the afternoon sun was beginning to slant through the windows, painting gold across the hardwood floors. I walked to the living room and stood in front of the piano. I'd made a decision about it last night. I called the community centre, the one 3 blocks away where I used to volunteer before Daniel said it wasn't safe for me to walk there alone anymore. "Hello, this is Margaret Morrison. I have a piano I'd like to donate. It's an antique upright, well maintained. Would you be interested?" The woman on the other end sounded thrilled. "Oh my goodness, yes! We've been wanting to start a music program, but we don't have instruments. When can we pick it up?" "Any time this week. I'll be home." After I hung up, I ran my hand along the piano's lid one last time. Robert's mother had given it to us as a wedding present. 54 years ago. It had moved with us from apartment to apartment, house to house, carrying our life forward like an anchor. Now it would carry music forward for someone else. The doorbell rang. I knew who it would be before I looked through the peephole. Daniel stood on my porch, arms crossed, jaw tight. Behind him, Marissa sat in their BMW, engine running, watching. I took a breath, opened the door. "Hello, Daniel." "What the hell, Mom?" "No preamble, no pretense. What are you trying to prove?" "I'm not trying to prove anything." The bank called. Said you cancelled everything. The car payment, the club, Tyler's allowance. Tyler's tuition is in a trust now for his direct use only. His face went red. "You can't do that. We had an agreement. We had an arrangement. I'm ending it." "Why?" The anger cracked. Underneath it, something else. Confusion, real confusion, like he genuinely couldn't understand. I looked at him. My son. The baby I'd rocked to sleep. The boy who'd cried in my arms after his first heartbreak. The man who'd asked me not to come to his son's graduation because I would embarrass him. "Because I deserve better," I said quietly. "Better? Mum, we take care of you. We visit. We call. You call when you need something. That's not fair, isn't it?" He stared at me. Behind him, Marissa honked the horn, once, impatient. "Look," he said, "I know I screwed up. The graduation thing, I shouldn't have said that, but you're blowing this out of proportion. Cutting off support, changing your will. I haven't told you about my will." He went still. "Mr. Patterson mentioned it." "Mr. Patterson is my banker, not yours. He thought I should know." He was wrong. We stood there in the doorway. The afternoon was warm. I could hear children playing somewhere down the street, their laughter carrying on the wind. "I need those payments to continue," Daniel said finally. "At least the car. I can't afford." "Then sell the BMW and buy something you can afford."
"You're not thinking clearly. You're upset. You're emotional."
"I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years." Marissa honked again, longer this time. Daniel turned, held up a hand to her, then looked back at me. "Mum, please, just think about this. Sleep on it. We can talk more tomorrow."
"There's nothing more to talk about."
"You're really going to do this? Cut us off?" "I'm going to stop funding your lifestyle. You're a grown man with a good job. You'll be fine." "And if I'm not?" I met his eyes. "Then you'll figure it out, like everyone else does." He opened his mouth, closed it, shook his head. "Marissa was right about you," he said quietly. "You've changed." "Yes," I said, "I have." He walked back to the car. Marissa said something I couldn't hear through the windshield. He shook his head, got in, and they drove away. I closed the door, leaned against it, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I didn't feel guilty. The lawyer's office was downtown in one of those historic buildings with marble floors and brass fixtures that made every footstep echo. I'd found Grace Chen through the internet, reading reviews until my eyes hurt. Compassionate, thorough, doesn't let family steamroll you. That last review had made me pick up the phone. Her office was on the 4th floor. The elevator was old, the kind with an interior gate you had to close manually. I did it carefully, feeling the weight of the brass, the solid chunk as it locked into place. Attorney Grace Chen was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes behind frameless glasses and a handshake that meant business. "Mrs. Morrison, thank you for coming in." She gestured to a chair across from her desk. "You mentioned on the phone you want to update your will and change your executor. Yes." I'd brought the folder again. It was becoming a kind of companion. Evidence. Proof. My current will leaves everything to my son Daniel, with him as executor. I want to change it. The house goes to my grandson Tyler in trust until he's 25. Other assets split between Tyler and specific charities. Daniel gets nothing. Grace wrote this down without reaction. And executor, you, if you're willing. If not, Tyler when he turns 25, or a professional fiduciary until then. I can serve as executor. May I ask what prompted these changes? I told her, not everything, not the years of small humiliations, but the essentials, the graduation exclusion, the automatic payments, the confrontation at my door. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she set down her pen. "Mrs. Morrison, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Is anyone pressuring you to make these changes? Has anyone threatened you or made you feel unsafe?"
No one's pressuring me except my own common sense.
Good. She pulled out a legal pad. "Let's talk specifics. The house is worth..."
Last appraisal said 450,000.
"And it's paid off?" 30 years ago. She made notes.
Other assets?
Retirement accounts, about 300,000. Savings, stocks, maybe another 100,000. Robert had a life insurance policy that paid out when he died. I've been living off that and his pension. So roughly 850,000 total.
Yes.
And you want all of this to bypass Daniel entirely? I thought about that question, about Daniel as a baby, his tiny hand wrapped around my finger, about teaching him to tie his shoes, to ride a bike, to be kind to people, about the man he'd become. "Yes," I said. Grace nodded. "I'll draft the documents. In Washington state, you can't completely disinherit a spouse, but you can disinherit children. However, given the value of the estate, I'd recommend we include a no contest clause. If Daniel challenges the will, he forfeits anything he might have received." He's not receiving anything. We can still include it as a deterrent. Also, I'm going to recommend you get a formal mental competency evaluation. Not because I think there's any question, you're clearly of sound mind, but because it removes one avenue of attack if Daniel decides to fight this. I've already scheduled one with my doctor. Excellent, she smiled. You're very thorough, Mrs. Morrison. I've had time to think about this. We spent the next hour going through details, specific bequests, Robert's collection of first edition mysteries to the local library, my mother's jewellery to Tyler, small amounts to the community centre, and the animal shelter I'd supported for years. What about personal effects? Grace asked. Photos, furniture, sentimental items. Tyler can go through the house and take what he wants. The rest can be sold or donated. And you're certain about this? Once these documents are signed and witnessed, Daniel will have no claim to anything except what you explicitly choose to give him. I'm certain. She stood, offered her hand again. I'll have draft documents ready for you in a week. We'll review them together, make any changes, then execute them with proper witnesses. In the meantime, I'd advise you to keep records of everything, texts, voicemails, any contact with Daniel or his wife, just in case.
In case of what?
In case this gets ugly. It already was ugly, but I understood what she meant. In the elevator, descending, I felt the weight of what I'd just done settling over me like a blanket. Heavy but not crushing, real. My phone rang as I reached the lobby. Tyler. I stared at his name on the screen. We hadn't spoken since before the graduation. He'd sent a few texts. Grandma, where were you? Dad says you're not feeling well. Can we talk? But I hadn't answered. Hadn't known what to say. I answered, Grandma? His voice was exactly the same as it had been when he was 8 years old and called to tell me about winning his first science fair. Eager, uncertain, sweet. Hello, Tyler. Oh my God, finally! I've been trying to reach you for days. Are you okay? Dad says you've been sick. I'm not sick. He says you went to the bank and cancelled a bunch of stuff. Is that true? I found a bench near the building entrance and sat down. Yes. Why? Because I needed to. Silence. Then, Grandma, what's going on? Dad and Mum are freaking out. They say you won't return calls. You changed your will. You're acting weird. I'm not acting weird. I'm making decisions about my own life. But the tuition? Dad says you cut off my tuition. I still have grad school. Your tuition is in a trust fund for you. It'll pay for graduate school if you decide to go. Oh. Another pause. Dad didn't mention that part. No, I imagine he didn't. Grandma. His voice changed, got quieter. Why didn't you come to my graduation? I looked for you. I saved you a seat. That hurt more than anything Daniel had said. Your father told me not to come. What? No, why would he do that? You'd have to ask him. I don't understand. None of this makes sense. I watched people pass by on the sidewalk, young professionals in suits, students with backpacks, elderly couples walking slowly, holding hands, the world continuing indifferent. Tyler, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. When was the last time you called me just to talk? Not because you needed something, not because it was a holiday, but just because you wanted to hear my voice. Silence. He trailed off. Grandma, I've been busy. School is, I know. You've been busy. That's fine, that's normal. You're young, you have your own life. But I've been busy too. Busy writing checks, busy being available, busy being useful. And I'm tired. Are you mad at me? No, sweetheart, I'm not mad at you. Then what's happening? I'm learning to take care of myself, that's all. I could hear him breathing, thinking. The trust fund, he said finally. That's really for me, not for Dad, just for you. Education, housing, emergencies. Your grandmother taking care of you properly, not just throwing money at problems. And you're really not sick. I'm healthier than I've been in years. Can I come see you? This weekend, maybe? Something in my chest loosened. I'd like that. Okay. Relief flooded his voice. Okay, good. I'll text you when I know what time. And Grandma? Yes? I'm sorry for not calling more, I'm sorry, I know. After we hung up, I sat on the bench for a long time, watching the shadows lengthen across the sidewalk. One conversation. One honest conversation. That was all it took to remind me that Tyler was still there, still the boy who'd played piano in my living room, still capable of understanding. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. I know you talked to Tyler. Stop poisoning him against us. I deleted it without responding. At home, the community centre had left a message. They could pick up the piano tomorrow if that worked for me. Anytime, I called back and told them. That evening, I made dinner, just for myself. The chicken breast with herbs, roasted vegetables, the peach cut into slices and drizzled with honey. I set the table, 1 plate, 1 glass, 1 cloth napkin. I lit a candle. I ate slowly, tasting everything. And the silence in the house no longer felt like absence. It felt like peace. The letter arrived on a Thursday. Legal letterhead, thick paper. The return address was a law firm in Bellevue, expensive, prestigious, the kind Daniel and Marissa would choose to make a point. I opened it standing in my kitchen, morning light streaming through the window. Demand for accounting and return of funds, the header read. The language was dense, aggressive, accusations wrapped in legal terminology, undue influence, diminished capacity, financial exploitation of their good faith in allowing me to help with expenses. They wanted the money back, all of it. 5 years of automatic payments, totaling, I had to read the number twice to believe it, $180,000, plus interest, plus their legal fees. I set the letter on the counter, looked at it, felt nothing. No, that wasn't true. I felt something, but it wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was clarity. I called Grace Chen. I received a demand letter from my son's attorneys. I thought you might. Can you scan it and send it to me? What do I do? Nothing. Don't respond. Don't call them. Don't engage. Forward it to me and I'll handle it. This is a scare tactic, Mrs. Morrison. They're hoping you'll panic and reinstate the payments. I'm not going to panic, I know. I could hear the smile in her voice. That's why you hired me. After I hung up, I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, read the letter again. They were claiming I'd promised to support them for life, that I'd manipulated Tyler against them, that I was engaging in elder abuse of myself somehow. The absurdity of it would have been funny if it weren't so cruel. A knock at the door. I looked through the peephole. Tyler stood on my porch, hands in his pockets, looking young and uncertain. I opened the door. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I know it's early. I drove straight from campus. I couldn't wait. Come in." He followed me to the kitchen. I poured him coffee. He wrapped his hands around the mug like he used to do as a child, seeking warmth. "Dad sent me a copy of that letter," he said, "the one his lawyer sent you." "Did he?" "Grandma, you can't just ignore it. They're serious. They're going to sue you. Let them." He stared at me. "What?" "Let them sue me, Tyler. I have an excellent attorney. I have bank records showing 5 years of voluntary payments. I have a formal competency evaluation from my doctor, and I have the truth. But the money was mine to give and mine to stop giving. Dad says you promised. I'm sure he says a lot of things." Tyler set down his coffee, looked at me with Robert's eyes, seeing more than I'd given him credit for. "You're different," he said quietly. "Yes. Since when?" "Since your father told me not to come to your graduation." He flinched. "He told me you were sick that day. He said you couldn't make it." "I was there, Tyler, back row, with binoculars." His face went pale. "You were there? I saw you walk across that stage. I saw your smile. It was worth the drive. Why didn't you come find me?" "Because your father didn't want me there. And I realized I'd spent too many years going where I wasn't wanted, trying to earn love I'd already given freely." He looked down at his hands. "I didn't know any of it. The money, Grandma, I thought you just liked helping." "I did like helping. But somewhere along the way, helping became being used. And I can't do it anymore. I don't want your money." "I know. That's why the trust is for you, for school, for your future. Not for your father's BMW or your mother's country club. They're furious. Mum says you've betrayed the family." "By taking care of myself?" He didn't answer, just sat there, processing. Finally, "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing. This is between me and your father. You're an adult. You get to decide your own relationships. But if I keep seeing you, they'll what? Cut you off? Tyler, they're not the ones with the money." He laughed, a short, shocked sound. Then he was quiet. "I keep thinking about the piano," he said. "The one in your living room. I used to play it every Sunday. I know. I came here last month and it was gone. I donated it to the community centre. They're starting A music program. Oh. His voice went soft. That's good. I thought so. We sat in silence. Not uncomfortable, something else. Grandma, he said eventually, I'm going to keep coming here. Even if Dad gets mad, even if Mum complains. You're my grandmother. I'm not going to let them take that away. I reached across the table and took his hand. His fingers were warm, strong. Thank you. He stayed for an hour. We talked about his future, about graduate school, about a girl he was seeing that he hadn't told his parents about yet. Normal things, ordinary things, the things grandmothers and grandsons should talk about. When he left, he hugged me at the door. I love you, he said. I love you too. After his car disappeared down the street, I went back to the kitchen. The legal letter was still on the counter. I folded it carefully and put it in the folder with all the others. Evidence, history, proof that I'd made the right choice. Outside, the afternoon sun was painting everything gold. The trees, the houses, the quiet street where I'd lived for 46 years. My phone rang. Daniel. I let it ring. It rang again. I turned it off. Tomorrow I would call Grace and give her the letter. Tomorrow I would start whatever legal battle Daniel wanted to wage. Today I was going to sit in my house in the silence I'd chosen and feel proud of myself. 3 months later, Tyler and I sat at my kitchen table having dinner. He'd driven up from campus for the weekend, arriving with a bag of groceries and a plan to cook his specialty. His attempt at my lasagna recipe, which I'd taught him over video chat the week before. It wasn't perfect. The noodles were a little overdone. The cheese had browned too quickly. But it was made with love, and I told him so. Dad called me yesterday, he said, serving me a second helping. Asked if I was still in contact with you. What did you tell him? That yes, I'm in contact with my grandmother, that I'm not choosing sides, but I'm also not pretending you don't exist. How did he take that? About how you'd expect. He hung up on me. I'd learned not to apologize for Daniel's behavior. That wasn't my burden to carry anymore. The lawsuit had been quietly dropped 6 weeks ago. Grace had sent Daniel's attorneys a detailed accounting of every voluntary payment, copies of my competency evaluation, and a politely worded suggestion that they reconsider their position before we countersued for harassment. They'd reconsidered. Daniel and Marissa hadn't spoken to me since. No calls, no texts, not even the obligatory Mother's Day card that used to arrive like clockwork. I was surprised by how little it hurt. Some mornings I woke up and felt the space where that relationship used to be, the way you feel an old injury when the weather changes. But it wasn't grief anymore. It was just fact, a reality I'd learned to live with. The trust fund for Tyler was set up properly now. The will was executed and filed. The house was secure. My finances were my own, managed carefully, no longer hemorrhaging money to people who viewed love as transactional. I've been thinking, Tyler said, cutting into his lasagna. About grad school. Whether I even want to go. Oh? Yeah. I mean, everyone expects it. Dad keeps saying I need to maximise my earning potential, build a career. But I don't know if that's what I want. What do you want? He shrugged. To teach, maybe, high school science. Help kids who don't have anyone else helping them. I know it doesn't pay well, but it matters to you, yeah. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Then do it. The trust is there whether you use it for grad school or teacher certification or nothing at all. It's yours, your choice. He smiled. Robert's smile. Thanks, Grandma. After dinner, we did the dishes together. He washed, I dried, and we fell into an easy rhythm that felt like coming home. The community centre sent me a note, I said. They named the piano after you, the Tyler Morrison Memorial Piano. I'm not dead, Grandma. Memorial to your childhood, then. They said 30 kids have signed up for lessons. That's amazing. I went by last week to hear them practice. There was a little girl, maybe 7, stumbling through Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Her face was so serious, so determined.
Like I used to be.
Exactly like you used to be. We moved to the living room. The space where the piano had stood was still empty, but I'd put a reading chair there instead, positioned by the window to catch the afternoon light. Tyler sprawled on the couch, at home in a way Daniel never was anymore.
Do you miss him?
He asked suddenly.
Dad, I mean.
I thought about that, really thought about it. I miss who I wanted him to be, I said finally. I miss the son who needed me, who looked up to me, who came to me with his problems. But that person hasn't existed in a long time. Maybe he never existed. Maybe I just wanted him to so badly that I convinced myself he did.
That's sad.
It is, but it's also okay. I spent years trying to earn his love by being useful. Turns out, I can't buy love. I can only decide what I'm worth. Tyler was quiet. Then, "You're worth a lot, Grandma. So are you." He stayed until Sunday evening. We went to the farmer's market Saturday morning, bought fresh flowers that I arranged in vases throughout the house. We watched old movies. We talked about nothing and everything. When he left, I stood in the doorway and watched him drive away, waving until his car disappeared around the corner. Then I went back inside. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't empty. I'd learned the difference. I walked through the rooms, touching things. The walls Robert and I had painted, the floors we'd refinished. The windows we'd replaced, every corner held a memory. Some of them hurt, some of them shone. In the kitchen I made tea, sat at the table where I'd made so many decisions over the past 3 months. If you're reading this, and I imagine you are, because stories like mine have a way of finding the people who need them, I want you to know something. Your silence isn't kindness. It's abandonment of yourself. Your yes when you mean no isn't generosity. It's a lie you tell to keep the peace, and it costs you pieces of your soul every time. Your boundaries aren't selfish. They're a reminder that you're a person, not a function, not a checkbook, not a convenience. I'm 72 years old. I spent 7 decades learning to be small, to be accommodating, to earn my place in other people's lives. And then one day, I decided I was done. I don't know what your one day will look like. Maybe it already happened. Maybe it's happening now while you're reading this, feeling that familiar ache of recognition. Maybe it hasn't happened yet, but when it does, when you finally say no and mean it, when you finally choose yourself, please know this. It will be lonely sometimes. It will hurt. People will call you selfish, crazy, difficult. They'll tell you you've changed, and they won't mean it as a compliment. But you will have changed, and that's the point. I sat at my kitchen table as the sun set, painting the walls rose and gold. Outside, the world continued. Inside, I was finally, truly home. And I was enough, just as I was, just me.